All right, I think we're live. I always do my double check at the very beginning, and I check on YouTube if it is live. Yeah. Okay, so we are live. Welcome, everyone. So my name is Cap. I do developer relations at Sanity.io, and this is my co-host. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, yeah, I'm Hida. I'm joining today from Rotterdam, the Netherlands. I'm also in the DevRel team at Sanity.
Right on. So I don't normally have a co-host, so this is gonna be fun. I like having others joining me. So as you all come in and you're joining us, we want to direct you to the chat. So chat, as you see, has been disabled in YouTube. It's because we would like you to go to slack.sanity.io and go to the hashtag meetup channel, and that's where we're gonna have our chat. I put there's a little banner with instructions. But yeah, we'll be able to put like GIFs and emojis and threads and kind of react a little bit better than the standard YouTube chat would have. So definitely head on over to slack.sanity.io, go to the meetup channel, and you'll find us there. Also, once you join, let us know where you're joining in from. So I'm joining in from Las Vegas, Nevada in the US. Hida, where are you joining in from?
Yeah, I'm joining from Rotterdam in Netherlands.
Right on. So we have Martin. Martin's first. He's one of our co-workers. Hi, Martin. So yeah, let us know where you're joining in from and say hi. And then as you come into the channel, we want to direct you to the code of conduct, and I'll let Hida talk more on that.
Yeah, so the code of conduct is bookmarked at the top of the Meetup channel. It'll be in one of the pinned channel links. It will give you some expectations. So this is all about how we communicate together, behavior for the community. And yeah, it's super important for us. We would love you to read that and make sure that you follow that code of conduct. So for us, it's important that the community is an inclusive and welcoming environment for everyone.
Yes. So if you have any questions or concerns, definitely reach out. We are here for you, but be kind to everyone. All right, so Hida and I have a quick little demo for you all. So the studio has a upgrade, a little. It's not. I say upgrade. We're doing an upgrade. We're doing the V3 upgrade this year, but something else. We're doing a little demo for findability. It's a new search bar in the studio. Hida, are you ready for me to share your screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah, what I'll be showing is a course platform that we use for demo purposes. So we have a bunch of content in there, like some courses. We've got labels because we're demoing like different languages here, um, different types of lessons. So this is all in our studio, and you'll know that we have a search bar right at the top of the screen. What we've changed today, or 2 days ago, I think technically,
Yeah.
is that press Command K, open up the search thing, and it will give you results in a slightly different manner than you're used to. So let's say we're searching for local, it's going to show me local things. And then in the right top corner, I'm able to actually select the type of content that I'm looking for. So let's say I'm looking for the word local in that bar. It's going to give me a bunch of lessons that are related to local, and also a course. So with that new kind of filter thing, I can say I want to filter just for specific kinds of content. So in this case, these are all lessons, but maybe I'm looking for the course that's on localization. So what I can do is I can search for the document type course, uh, press that, and then that will be an active filter. So I'll just see the course that is about localization. Now that's really cool. It is an often requested feature from enterprise clients as well as other clients, because a lot of different users of Sanity have a lot of like content types that they're looking for, and sometimes the names of the content that they have are the same for a lot of things, and it's harder to find stuff. And this update, we hope to make it a whole lot easier to find your stuff. And we're still working on this. We're still like
Yeah.
refining and trying to make it better.
And what were the commands again to get that activated?
So basically, you can click on like the search bar, or you can
Mm-hmm.
press Command K,
Command
and with
K.
Command K, that will open up the same thing.
Cool. And to get this in your studio, run Sanity Upgrade, and you'll be able to have this new search bar. So yeah, let us know what you think. All right. So we also have some user testing going on. So if you've recently signed up for Sanity and you want to let our product team know what you thought about the onboarding, we are doing like 30-minute calls with you. So if you'd like to speak about your first experience with Sanity, Hida's going to put in the Calendly link for scheduling a call with one of the Sanity team members. So pretty much you can ask questions, you can voice concerns, but if you'd like to give some feedback about your first like experience with Sanity, we'd love to hear about it. And that link is in the Meetup channel. All right, so let's quickly cover the agenda for today. So first we have Alan and Digby. They are going to be talking about One Coffee's website's journey with Sanity. We're going to also hear from Jan, who will be sharing with us the Dutch coronavirus dashboard. And then finally, we're going to hear from Cody, who is an engineer at Sanity, who will be demoing the differences between V2 and V3. So if you're not familiar with V3, this Sanity Studio is getting a major upgrade this year. It's currently in developer preview. I have been using it a little bit recently. Hida, have you been using it recently?
Yeah, I've been playing around with it and like trying out to build like components and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really great. But yeah, it's in developer preview right now. Later this year, we will launch it for general availability. But yeah, from now until when it's launched, we're going to have at least one talk dedicated to V3 and what to expect and demos on it. And then when it is launched, we will have a meetup fully dedicated to V3. So you are going to be helped all along the way in this upgrade. Hida is also sharing a blog post about the developer preview and what to expect and how you can get your hands on it.
Yeah, you can find it in the Meetup channel, of course, and yeah, have a read if you want to know more about V3.
Yeah.
So in the upcoming session, we'll have Q&As, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have like different Q&As for each session, about 2 to 3 questions, and you can involve in that because you can ask those questions in the Meetup channel on Slack. So yeah, we would love to get your questions. You can also send them to us by Twitter, and yeah, we'll be asking them to the speaker.
Yeah. Don't be shy. Every question matters. So yeah, definitely ask if you have any questions.
Yeah, there's no wrong questions, right?
Yep, exactly. All right, so let's oh, one more thing. We do have a meetup at the end of next month. So if you are a member of our meetup group or if you are on our Twitter, you'll see that. But we do have one every month. So we do have one next month. But let's bring on our first speakers. So we have Alan and Digby. They are going to be talking about Kua Coffee and how Sanity is tying the whole website together. So I'm going to bring Alan and Digby on stage. Hi, Alan. Hi,
Hello.
Digby.
Hello.
All right. So where are you both joining us from?
Digby.
I'll go first. I'm joining from Tasmania in Australia.
Nice.
And I'm in Mexico City, in Mexico.
Nice. So the time zones are drastically different between the two of you.
Correct.
Right on.
Digby, what time is it in Tasmania?
It's 3:09 right now. In the morning.
Quite
morning.
early.
So much for joining at this late time. We're so lucky.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Right on. Well, again, everyone, if you have questions for Alan and Digby, put them in the slack.sanity.io #meetup channel, and we will ask them at the end. But yeah, the stage is yours. Thank you, Alan and Digby.
Cool. I'm going to kick off our keynote, Diggs.
Nice. All right. So I'll start by just giving a bit of background on Kua and what we do. And then Alan will kind of share the rest of the preso. But yeah, my name is Digby. I work for Kua. We're a coffee company just like any other coffee company in many ways. We sell coffee mainly to workplaces and people at home. But what we do differently is we're a social enterprise. Yeah, so maybe next slide, Al. And yeah, so what we do differently is we're a social enterprise. We our entire business focus is geared towards fighting climate change within the coffee industry. So we do that in lots of different ways. From the start of the coffee journey in the sourcing, all the way to what happens with the waste. We're carbon negative, and we have been since 2019. When we package our coffee for our home customers and across Australia, we use compostable packaging, but for our business customers, we use reusable packaging. But importantly, none of that packaging is going to landfill. We also focus really heavily on our sourcing, and our coffee comes from Uganda in an area called Mount Elgon, an area which is particularly prone to the effects of climate change. So we work really closely with sourcing partners and smallholder farmers. You can see a buying station high up on the mountain here in Uganda. Yeah, we have a very direct sourcing approach, and import it straight to Sydney here in Australia. And then the last thing we do is we redirect all our profits to fund climate resilience projects in Uganda, where the coffee is grown. Next slide. All right, so this is kind of the Kua journey, really. We've been around for almost 5 years now, but it started with on the left, Brody and another guy, Darcy. We're in Uganda, and next to Brody there is Daniel, and Daniel just gave him some coffee, and they brought it back to Australia, and with the coffee, they started a business, and then they brought on 4 others, and we moved into a little share house in Sydney, and we kind of grew Kua from there. And now, yeah, it's in cupboards and kitchens across Australia, and workplaces around the country as well. Next slide now. And then about there in that green line is where Alan came in. We met at our workplace where we were working together, and Alan asked to do the Kua website, and yeah, we were pretty early in our Kua journey at that point, and still finding our feet on who we were and what we stood for. Yeah, it was a pretty bold website. Would you say that, Al? We one of probably the strangest ideas. Next slide is this, which we basically stopped users entering the website. I can't believe Al let me get away with this, but we stopped users entering the website and asked them to calculate their impact before they did anything at all. And I suppose we started our journey with Sanity 1 year ago, and probably some of the holes in this website were the source for completely rejigging how we did things. Yeah, so next. So besides kind of structurally and setting the bones for future scenarios, the main focus from the design team was to rejig how we thought about our story and how we told that, and tell that through the product, which is essentially where everyone who visits our sites wants to go. They want to mostly buy coffee, and if they don't, we want to make them buy coffee. But we want to use that as a vehicle to tell our story and speak about our impact and all of the other product attributes that we have, delicious coffee, etc. And then everything else, you just wanted to keep as simple as possible. I'll run through a few quick examples, and then Alan will also speak as well. Yeah, we pumped most of our resources into the product page, making it super easy to use, and also really the focus of the website. You can see here we have little toggles where you can just flick between the different blends. at the click of a button. We are mostly subscription product, but it's fully embedded in the whole product experience. We've got this little slider which allows you to adjust your subscription, and a subscription order or a general one-off order costs the same. Next one now. This is probably the cleanest example of where we've embedded our impact within the product, and you can see at the bottom there's a little carbon footprint indication as you check out, where instead we might have put this elsewhere on the website as something we really wanted to tell the story with the product and let the user understand what they're buying and the impact that it has throughout the journey, including at the checkout. Next one now. And yeah, the other thing we do is we put all of the additional information here on the product page. You see all these little tooltips here, but part of that is focusing on making each blend something bigger than just a coffee blend. And so we did these little projects where we get musicians to make playlists inspired by each coffee blend and the flavors. This one's by Gordon Coyne, a great artist here in Australia. So yeah, over to you, Al.
Thanks, Diggs. Yeah, so I've titled my part of the talk Hot Tech Jargon because I'm about to dive into the tech details, and I hope you're all ready. So, like Digby said, we met 3 years ago, and I helped Kua build their first website. And at the time, I was just in love with building headless sites with Gatsby and Prismic and Shopify. And I still have a lot of projects built with that stack in it. And things change into Kua 2.0, as you'll see, but it still stands as a good stack. And yeah, it worked really well for a time. And in those 3 years that followed, I started working full time for a design studio, and Digby and I would just sort of meet for lunch every now and then. We would talk about ideas about how Kua's tech platform could evolve and how we could add little nice things and experiments. The first one was Digby was really keen on piloting a subscription system. And I had an idea about how to do this with Stripe, even though Shopify was our existing e-commerce platform. So we created this interesting pilot system with Stripe that also talked to Shopify, and then also had a roundabout way of talking to Kua's warehouse system, Unleashed, using Zapier and Google Sheets. It seemed like a great idea at the time, but yeah, this subscription system started to grow, and it was something that Kua wanted to continue to grow, but it had a couple holes in it, and it wasn't so robust that we were confident to take it to 100 or more customers. So that was the first pain point or challenge. And then another little project Digby and I did was camera swap. Digby came up with this really great project called Camera Swap, which he'll tell you about later. And he asked me to sort of make a digital exhibition for it. So at that point, it was this project with that was going to have a heap of photos, and it had all these complex relationships. So I brought in Sanity at that stage, and I think that was about 2 years ago. But looking at this, where it landed us was we had 2 e-commerce systems, we had 2 CMSs, we had some manual processes, and we had a new brand, all of which happened over the course of 3 years. So we decided to rebuild the site. And so a big driver for building the new site was to have customers have their own portal where they could manage their orders. This is for just regular Australians who wanted to get Kua at home in a subscription and manage how frequently they got coffee, or if they wanted to pause or cancel the subscription, they could do it themselves instead of talking to Digby like they would over email with Stripe. And what else? Yeah, so my stack had changed after 3 years. I really grew to love Sanity. So Sanity became my go-to CMS. And then we used Next.js for the front end. Shopify stayed with Recharge on top. And very luckily, Shopify came up with an integration with Unleashed, which was their Kua's warehouse management system. So it just essentially we wanted to cut out any sort of manual work, and we just wanted to unify all of our systems. And Sanity was sort of like the command center at in the middle of it, and I'll show you how Kua uses that. So the first thing is page building. This is what Sanity does at its most fundamental level. So I'm going to show you the About page, which is just like a really simple content page, but it's a good example. So I'm going to jump into Sanity. So this is the About page, and uses the most popular Sanity schema I've created, which is the page schema. And every page has a bit of SEO metadata, which is stored up here, which is great. And then you've got just like basic page information. You can add a parent page if you want to create a page hierarchy, a slug hierarchy. Then you've got page types here, which is a little hectic for Kua because there's lots of different types of pages we want to make. And this essentially just shows and hides fields for specific page types. So like if you're making a blog post, it'll have a featured image, it'll have a date, it'll have an author, it'll have tags. But the About page is just a page. And every page has this section, which is called slices, which is, it's your modules or blocks that essentially compose the page. And Digby can come in here and he can add from a range of different components, and he can rearrange them, and each component corresponds to a custom component on the front end. So this is the brand hero, which has an animation, but it'll take a bit of time, so I'm going to skip it. This is the carousel hero, which is the carousel block, which lets Digby like add videos, GIFs, and images, and etc. So this is page building. The next thing is e-commerce. So as Digby mentioned, like that was the focus of the second build. Digby really wanted to nail e-commerce and have a really sort of nice design for products and making that experience of getting coffee just as seamless and enjoyable and satisfying as possible. So Sanity has a great integration with Shopify called Sanity Connect, and that essentially let us pull down product and collection data from Shopify and essentially have all that content in one place in the Sanity Studio. So that all lives here. And as you can see, we've got our products and their variants, and we've got all the Shopify data being fed into Sanity, and then we've extended it. So we've made a custom gallery that allows for a range of different media types. Like for example, for videos, you can upload a video to Mux. And then with variants, like as Digby mentioned, we wanted to track the carbon footprint. So we've extended the product variant schema to include a number for the carbon footprint, which will tally up in the cart. So yeah, that was really great. And then the last thing that I wanted to showcase with Sanity is schmizzle or custom functionality. So just the ability to quickly spin up schemas for almost anything lets you do really cool things. So yeah, Digby came to me, as I mentioned, like one of the things we worked on in the 3 years between Core 1.0 and 2.0 was this project called Camera Swap. And Digby, do you want to talk a little bit about what that was?
Sure. So yeah, as I said, we have a very close relationship with the farmers who grow cool coffee, and also a very close relationship with our coffee drinkers. We have a really great community of coffee drinkers across Australia, and part of what we do with our impact is not only direct impact funding climate resilience stuff, but also connecting the different worlds of people who drink coffee and people who farm coffee, as this really as a stronger connection can better speak about the problems happening in the supply chain or climate change, and also in a really positive way connect people. So what we did for the Camera Swap project is we sent 6 cameras to Uganda to our coffee farmers, and they just could take photos of whatever they liked on the mountain, and then they send those cameras back to us, and we send those same cameras back out to our coffee drinkers with their usual subscription, and then they send the cameras back to us, and then we had all these photos, and we made sure people from in Uganda saw photos of what people on the other side of the world are doing when they drink their coffee, and vice versa. And yeah, it was a really powerful project because in many ways it let people tell their own story about their life, and how coffee connects, how coffee is a part of their life. And yeah, we were very happy to share that story, and we shared it in many mostly through this great part of the website that Alan built.
Yeah, from a technical point of view, what this meant was Digby was going to need to upload a whole heap of photos. The first year it was 79, and then the idea was that we'll run it multiple years.
And we're just getting
so
some new ones for the new season this year, so that's good.
Yeah, so I needed a tool that was really good at managing images and creating an interface for people to do that, and also optimize those images when I got them on the front end. And also I need to somehow map this complex relationship between cameras that would be being shared between multiple photographers that are in different countries, and using different rolls of film. People would be sharing the same roll of film, and also obviously each photo had a story. Digby had sent people in Uganda and people in Sydney these these disposable cameras, but also with a notebook attached where they could write a short description about what that photo was all about. So in Sanity, that looked like this. So we have a schema for cameras. We have a schema for rolls of film, and then we have photographers, and like a bit about where they're from, and then we have the photos. So which essentially ties all that metadata together. Then on the front end, you know, we essentially had it split up into, you know, Uganda on the left and then Sydney on the right. Uganda being where the coffee is grown and prepared, and then Sydney, who are the consumers of the coffee. And you know, you could search these photos, and yeah, it was just really easy to manage all those relationships and have all this sort of search functionality and split up the two and manage that data with using stuff like Grok, and just having the studio for Digby to use, I think, was really good. Like it's the studio is just super simple and beautiful. I think that's pretty much it, isn't it, Diggs?
Yeah, happy days.
Happy days. Yeah, thank you, Hida and Cap, for having us. And Digby, where can people find you?
Our website. Go to
yeah,
coolcoffee.co. You can also find us on Instagram. Just search Cool Coffee. But yeah, check out the website.
Right on.
And yeah, I'm on Sanity Slack. I'm always there. I love it there. And I'm good for a chat. So you can find me there.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now I need to go have coffee, so I will be right back. You asked at the beginning, you had people answering how much coffee do you have a day? How much coffee do you all have a day? I'm a 1 coffee cup drinker. I just do 1.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Ooh.
I even though I get free coffee as much as I like, I only have 1 a day.
Yeah.
In the morning.
I'm burning the midnight oil. I'm a power user. I'm probably 3 or 4. I'm not proud of it, but
At
least.
Hida, what's your coffee?
Yeah, I
day?
want 2 cups a day, but yeah, I try to do it just in the morning.
Right on. So you were showing the page types, Alan, and I thought that was really like user friendly for like anyone who's in the studio. Do you find that a lot of people, like once they go into the studio, like teammates that are working in it, do you find that they have a lot of like ease building those? Like, does it make sense, or are they having to like ask questions, or how have you seen that experience with like people in the studio?
Yeah, no, it's been great so far. I don't know if it's that there's not a channel for that kind of feedback, or it's just that it's so intuitive that there are no questions. But even things with like the slices, you know, you create the preview content for the slice, like a module for a page, and you name it, and then it's just the fields. I've thought about using something like Storybook and having a client have essentially like a little library where they can see all the modules in action and play with the fields, but no one has asked for something like that. I think most people find it quite intuitive, and even like something that I didn't touch on in the talk, but having staging and production environments, that's something I've done a lot this year, and people find that quite manageable too, which is nice.
Cool. There was one community question that came in. Hid, I'll have you ask that one.
Sure. So that was a question. Are you using Shopify's online store, or do you roll your own and just use like the Shopify checkout?
Could you repeat that?
So the question that came in was if you're using Shopify's online store or if you are rolling your own and just use the checkout of Shopify. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, it's very headless, in the sense that everything except the checkout happens in Next.js. So it's a custom front end, and until you hit checkout, in which case we've been managing a checkout session sort of behind the scenes using the storefront API, and then we that generates a link for us, and then we send customers to the checkout using that link. The only exception for Kua is that because there's recharge is like subscription management portal actually exists in the Shopify storefront. So with Kua, pretty much most of the sites Next.js, but when someone wants to manage their subscription, they go to the storefront, and just that part of the Shopify storefront is exposed to the public. If you try and access anywhere else, we'll redirect you back to the headless front end, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. A lot of great info. A lot of like all of Kua Coffee's like initiatives and like the photo shares. I think it's really great what you all are doing. And thank you so much for sharing. If you would like to reach out to Alan or Digby, Hid is going to put their Twitters in the Meetup channel. But yeah, if you have more questions for them, reach out. Thank you so much again for speaking. We really appreciate it. And I don't know if you're going to sleep or just waking up, but thank you, Digby, for arriving or for sharing at such a tough hour. But yeah, thanks so much. And we will see you all around.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
What a fantastic talk. And we have another really cool speaker lined up too, actually. The next one will be Jan, and he will be speaking about the Dutch coronavirus dashboard. I've been looking at that website a lot when the coronavirus was going around a lot, right? That was what the government told us to look at. And I was super excited to find out that was actually built using Sanity. Yeah, shall we bring Jan on? What do you think?
Yeah. Hi, Jan.
Hi there. Hey, Cap. Hey, Ada.
Hey.
Thanks for the kind
I was
words.
going to ask where you're joining us from, but you're just around the corner from where I am, right?
Yeah, we could probably high five each other almost, or
yeah, we have.
Go away, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really
So
tough.
we're very excited about this talk. Remember, everyone, if you have any questions, put them into the chat, please. We'll get them answered, Jan, just after this in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be. Yeah.
Right
I've
on.
been sitting on this for 2 years, so I should know something about the topic now.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
So the stage is yours. Thank you, Jan.
Yeah. Thanks for the introduction. All right. Let me switch. Yeah, I'll be talking about the official Dutch COVID-19 dashboard. And to give a little bit of a background, I'm Jan. I work at Klever Franke, and we are a data design and technology consultancy. And we were 2 years ago, the Dutch government, the Ministry of Health, reached out to us and asked for help building a dashboard about COVID. And obviously we said yes, because one, it's a cool topic. Two, we're very glad to help out. But it was it's a bit of an interesting dynamic because we are a studio. We don't work for the government. So we were a little bit under the radar. And another interesting thing is, I think for the first 12, 18 months, we were fully anonymous, which was great. Actually, we could just work, do our best work, give the ministry all the credits, and just do our thing. And that actually led to us using, dare I say, a quite modern stack, especially when you consider that it is an official government project. So let's just dig in. This is how it looks in one of the latest versions. Before I actually start, I want to make a small disclaimer that after a certain point, about 2 years in the project, a year and a half, us and the government, well, we didn't really split ways, but we transferred maintenance of the project and further development of the project to a different party. So whatever is live now, we did a big part of it, but we can't take credits for all the latest changes and the latest enhancements. And what was interesting about this is, in a way, this was a true agile project. Like, we really started with a really small V1 because, it's a crisis. Like, it's definitely the first time that I encountered a pandemic or lived through a pandemic. So we needed to get something online as quick as possible. There was not a lot of time. I wanted to have a lot of value. And that way we slowly build it up. So first a V1, then a V2, a V3. And the interesting part is V1, we started really on a macro level, like very factual. These are the big numbers about the Netherlands. This is how we're doing. And the more time we had, the more refinements we could make. And after a while, we could shift focus a little bit more to like a local micro level, like how is your municipality doing? And we could also shift a little bit more to a narrative style, so add articles. And timeline. So the first release was in June 2020, which I think COVID first started appearing in Europe around March. And we started working on this project somewhere in May, if I remember correctly. So there was a really short turnover time. And then a couple of months later, we released version 2 with a couple of big, nice enhancements, better navigation. And sometime later, we released version 3, way more refined, but I'll show those later. So this, in essence, is version 1. It was a really simple, almost a one-pager website. A couple of tiles with the most important information we needed at the time, and nothing more than that. There were a couple of things that we could say about regional numbers, but only 2 tiles. It was very small. And these are some components we built at the time. And one of the design principles that this is important for the rest of the talk and for the full context is, yes, it's a crisis and we needed to get something live fast, but at the same time, it's the government. And, the information we present needs to be reliable, it needs to be accessible. It's important that it's not easy to be hacked or be changed by a third party. So what we did at the start is make a decision. Everything we do is static HTML, static CSS, static web server, no Node.js. Just get something live in its basic form. So we're using Next export. And we publish those things with a Docker container where you can see, I'm not going through the whole image container thing, but we're serving a very simple static Nginx server, as basic as could be. Something that was a little bit less basic is, from the start, we also decided that at some point, maybe not the first release, but we want to have a multi-language environment. So what we did, very naively, build an NL JSON file, English JSON file, import those, and based on the process environment variable public locale, we would switch JSON file, and that's it. That's multi-language done. And in the beginning, what we actually did was just run the Docker container twice, once in Dutch, once in English. You've got 2 containers, put them on different servers, load balancer, and done. And yeah, so we started on May 29th, which was a Friday, I believe. Worked through the weekend. My colleagues went through the Ministry of Health, and they did design stir and workshops. And we went live on June 4, which I think is 6 or 7 days total, probably 4 work days officially. But it was insane how fast we could have something live. Then version 2 became a bit bigger. As you can see, there's a bit more copy here. There's some updates going on. There's more information. And remember those English JSON files, Dutch JSON files. They grew a little. At a certain point, we started adding these ICU syntax like variables in the text, which worked, but became a bit cumbersome. And even worse, some configuration values started to be added to these files. And it works. It's great. The awesome thing about it is it's all in the repo. All the configuration, all the data was in the repo. Everything was open sourced. Everything could be verified. But maintenance-wise, not the easiest thing to do. At some point, we switched to localize, which worked for a while, to manage translations through UI. But we found out it had a couple of downsides. The things it's actually great at is like verifying that the changes you made are right. Have a nice QA step, merge them in your repo, and take your time slowly to do that. But we found out that wasn't really the workflow we needed. The workflow we needed was maybe 5 minutes before we do a daily update with new data. We need to change a couple of words. That was somewhat difficult to do with localize. And at some point, what we also did was questions came in. Can we have bold text? Can we have hyperlinks in our copy? Well, the quick answer is yes, we can. We just add some markdown syntax to it, add snarkdown to the front end, and we can show it that way. But what we essentially did was we basically abused localize as a CMS, which you shouldn't do. And another thing is, this is what I just was talking about, the workflow. Every time we wanted to do an update of the dictionary files, we had to make a PR. Sometimes that went wrong. Depending on which user was logged in, it would use different export settings. And it was really difficult to teach the right settings to all of the users that should have access to localize. So that's when we started thinking about alternatives. Talking about alternatives. So version 3, all the most important work was done. This was the part of the crisis where the vaccines became a topic. So here's a chart we made with vaccine data. There's a nice little ticker on the right that showed how many people get vaccinated every day or per minute. And like I said, a big topic of V3 was storytelling. So we want to write articles, and we want to share those articles and put some metadata in there that's good for SEO, bigger microcopy. And thus we introduced Sanity. Because I knew we wanted to move away from localize to make things a bit easier to use anyway. And we wanted to add that block to the front end. So this is one of the first things we did. Just how do we move away from localized to something more scalable, maintainable for the project we're building? And well, one of the easy things is, make a schema, locality string, Supported languages is an array, which at the time was just Dutch and English. And then you have a string, but in 2 languages. And you can use that. So one of the first things we built with it was the frequently asked questions section, which needed to be in Dutch and English, and needed a little bit more formatting, like a couple of paragraphs, some bold text, some titles. So this was relatively quick way of doing that, multi-language, and done. And the great thing about using Sanity for this, for us, was how flexible it was, like I wish I could say I made a really refined studio. Like the previous talk had a really nice looking studio, and I'm a bit jealous of it. Ours is a bit more, dare I say, functional. But we just needed something to work. And we did have a great API though with Sanity. And one of the things, like I said at the beginning, is we wanted static exports. So what we could do, and what we have done, is create all of these helper files to help us manage translations. And this is one of the most important ones for developers. So we made a little command line interface to get the most current or the most fitting translations into your local environment. Like you would need these when you're working on the front end. For static export, this is like one of our grok queries where we say we want to get all the localized texts, but don't give us the drafts because those are for tomorrow probably, because we had daily updates. And what we also did was, if you combine those things together, like get me all of the documents that are of type dictionary, flatten them or unflatten them. And you can see here's the NL JSON and the English JSON. We did add a underscore export to it. But we would write out these dictionary files statically in the Docker container. So there was no API connection between Sanity and the dashboard once we went live every day. So there was a database connection while developing it or when previewing it on a special preview server, but not once we've deployed it, So that made it very resilient. Another interesting thing is, once you have that data, once you have those JSON files, once you have those things already in a Node.js environment, what you can do is some clever tricks like this, where we write a TypeScript definition. I had a bit of trouble getting this started locally, and I can't show everything working at the moment, but this would give you really nice feedback in your editor in VS Code. Like, you're trying to access this translation, but that key doesn't exist. So either add that key in Sanity or, I don't know, import the text again. So you get some really nice feedback that way. And this is then the studio where we've transferred all of the locale files from localize into Sanity. We decided to keep the term localize because the content managers were already used to it, even though I would probably name it something else now. But they were used to it, so they knew where to find it. They could update all of their strings here. They knew that they could keep it in draft mode if they wanted to publish it later, or they could publish it if they wanted it to be live for the next release. So frequently asked questions, I just showed those as well. Those are just documents, and we added them to groups. And this is using the multi-language string configuration. We also built this language switcher you can see in the top right, where we can switch between Dutch and English. We found out that after a while, the studio just has a lot of information if you show Dutch and English for every field you need to fill in. So we made this a filter. So you just fill in Dutch first and then you switch to English. So this is the English view. And then it became time to refine more, like all of the essential features are done. And now we could really spend some time on making sure the UX was top notch. And we worked a lot on accessibility. So here are some more charts. I'm actually going to show a video where we show some of these accessibility features and UX features in action. So I'm just going to let it play for a while. Oh, I had my slides confused. This is actually a different video. This video is about the articles. And I remember Kitty showing something like this in a previous talk. So you can write an article. In the article, you can actually add a chart. And then there's the chart configuration on the right here. And that allowed people to make these really cool, engaging articles they could share on social media with specific charts in them that showed the relevant topic at the time. I'll be honest, there was some developer capacity needed here because, like source key, title key, difference key. You need to know which keys to use. So it's not completely foolproof, but it was really easy for us to use and to generate new articles quickly with these nice interactive charts in them. So this is the video with accessibility optimizations.
Current situation in the Netherlands. View all figures for the Netherlands. Jump to the menu for data points. Measures. There are national measures. Vaccinations. Vaccine doses administered 10,907,972.86. April 5th. Average number over the past 7 days. 235.6.
Cool. Where's my mouse? Yeah. So here's the studio, and I'll make the screen a little bit bigger so you can everybody can see it. It's not the prettiest studio. We really focused on functionality first instead of making it the most easy to use, straightforward CMS. But it does the job, and once you know where to find things, this is quite easy to update. One of the interesting things we found, or one of the most useful things at the time, was in the dashboard where we added these sections that say, hey, there's documents you didn't publish yet, or this one, which says, hey, there's actually these multi-language texts, these localized strings that you didn't translate into English yet. So this was really helpful for the content managers to see, okay, what do I still need to translate? Because otherwise the English version is out of sync with the Dutch version. And the new ones that were recently published, which is also quite useful because usually when updating these dashboards, you're working on like one very important topic in a couple of weeks. And there's a lot of focus on these recent localized texts for a little bit. And then they just, they sink to the bottom and they don't get updated as much anymore. One thing that we also just saw, what I want to show is the charts. And I know it's not really, well, it is partly related to sanity. So these charts, you can hover over them and you see the values per day. But one of the things you can also do is use your cursor keys to go through them. And like we just saw in the video, this would also announce it to a screen reader what's happening. And if this doesn't go fast enough, press shift, you can make bigger jumps and go through it. And if we get to this little bit darker blue area here, it says test, because I'm working from a test data set here. Or actually, this is when they started testing the sewage data. These annotations in the charts, these are actually coming from Sanity. So this is part of the whole chart builder configuration thing, where they could update texts, add annotations to the charts, and make it all a bit more dynamic and lively. We can go back to the keynote, but actually, that was it, Cap. So feel free to jump back, and I'm ready for questions.
Right on. Thank you so much for that presentation. I loved.
Ooh, we lost Cap.
Lose Cap for a second. I'll just say thanks so much for the presentation. I mean, it's really cool to see what was going on there with the keyboard stuff that you just.
Yeah, it was really cool that we had the time to do that. Actually, working for the government, accessibility is important. I mean, it's important. It's an important topic anyway. But I think the government is one of the few clients that actually pays you to do accessibility audits and gives you the time to actually focus on it. So we also really enjoyed it as a studio to build these little enhancements. It's
and I imagine you've gone through a lot of accessibility audit process there too, right?
Absolutely, we did multiple user interviews, focus sessions. There were a lot of UX research sessions happening, and we also had specific sessions with people with a disability, and we could see how they were using the dashboard. Not just in general, but what the things were that they were struggling with.
Right, like the user journeys and stuff that they were taking, or the
So that was it was really enlightening to see the things they had difficulty with. And the great news is we could fix that immediately. And historically, I would say data viz is a difficult topic with accessibility anyway. There's so much data. Like if you saw those line charts, what is it, 300, 400 data points? How do you make that accessible? Because accessible, I mean, it has multiple meanings, right? Like I can give you all of the information, but that doesn't mean that it's easy to use or that it's accessible to you to get that information.
Exactly. It's maybe hard to see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Hey, Cap, you're back.
Hey, welcome back, Cap.
My house just lost power and came back. Anyway.
Wow.
We were just letting accessibility for a bit.
Awesome. I have one last question that came from the community from Martin. There he wondered about these different languages that you have, because there's English and Dutch. Yeah. Would you have chosen a different strategy? Would you have had more languages? Like if you had a lot more languages, would you have chosen a different strategy?
No, not at all. No, I mean we could have changed the filter to be easier to use. No, I think this is just how it organically grew. We started with a really small app with, the dictionary file in the beginning was 50 lines. You just copy paste that, rename it to English JSON, and you're done. And that works. But then it slowly grew to be bigger and bigger. And that's actually one of the points that I wanted to make, and I completely forgot about it. So it's good that that question came up.
Yeah.
The thing about sanity that was most appealing to me while building this thing was I felt completely okay with making mistakes. If I would make a mistake in the schema, I knew I could always do a migration, or I could change things along the way as we went. That happened actually, like if we made mistakes, it was fine. We could just change the configuration and solve it. So
Yeah, it seemed like you've gone through a lot of iterations, like
yeah,
different versions, and changing things based on how the world changed, and the world changed a lot in that those.
and also the technical considerations, they also slowly evolve over time because you start with this concept of it needs to be fully static at all times, like because it's the most resilient way to build an app. And then very, very slowly, we got a bit more leeway to do things differently. Yeah. So we could have built a different API from the start, knowing what we know now. But no, I'm actually very happy with Sanity for managing translations. The only thing well, I'm not going to say we should have done it better, but like I said, these things grow over time. The only thing I would want to see different is we should have made a clearer distinction maybe between what's content and what's copy. Like putting
Right.
those markdown in the language string files, that was the part where it went wrong for me.
Temporary solution, right?
We recovered because we went to portable text after that.
Wow, this was really cool. Yeah, thank you so much for your talk. For everyone, you can find Jan in the community Slack and also on Twitter. We'll share the Twitter handle in the chat, so you can ask Jan more questions even after this. I'm sure people will have more questions as well. Yeah, thanks so much again for joining us today.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, thank you, Jan.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
All right, cheers.
All right, sorry about that. We've been having some issues with our break. We've been having some issues with our breaker, and it just tripped. So,
Wow,
thank goodness it
I'm
was.
amazed how fast you returned back. That's really cool.
Yeah. So, just as a reminder, if you are just joining and you'd like to join the chat, it is at slack.sanity.io in the #meetup channel. Just as a reminder.
Yeah, we're obviously super thankful, right, to have such cool speakers from our community in this meetup. We always have like speakers from Sanity and people from the community. We're always really happy to have those. And also today, right, I really enjoyed both of those talks. And to show our gratitude for that, we'll like to give every speaker Sanity hoodies. So keep an eye out for that link that we'll be sending you. You'll get a free hoodie. And yeah, once again, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for the community for asking such amazing questions. We appreciate all of that.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you to our speakers, and we'll send out those links for sure. So yeah, coming up next, we have Cody, who is a Sanity engineer who is working on the V3 upgrade for the studio. So I won't say much. Let's just bring Cody on stage. Hi, Cody.
Hello, everyone. Hope the sound is
Welcome.
okay.
Yeah, sounds great. I like the hat.
Yeah, it's my favorite hat, favorite shirt, favorite everything.
Nice.
Good to go.
You're ready for this.
Yes.
Cool. So
yes.
you're doing a V3 talk today, which V3 will be launching later this year. You're talking about like the differences between V2 and V3 kind of, and like what to expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More
cool.
specifically, kind of like how V3 behaves in the cases where V2 had kind of like a glass ceiling, preventing you from doing things you wanted to do, and what happens when you want to do them in V3, basically.
Right on. So this is definitely stuff that you will want to know as you upgrade your own studio. So,
yes.
yeah. So I will give the floor, we will give the floor to you. Again, if you need the chat, slack.sanity.io in #meetup. We are all hanging out there. All right, so good luck, Cody. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. All right, so this is a pretty basic V3 Studio. It's just a list of bookmarks with a URL and a title. It's config. If you're familiar with V2, you'll notice that in V3 we have moved away from the JSON format and instead use a normal JavaScript file. That in itself is a pretty significant difference. But just right off the bat, I will be focusing on going a bit further than just what we can do in this file. Because as I said in introduction, in V2, the decisions we made with the kind of bundling and technology we used later gave you some limitations in what kind of things you can do. So an interesting question is, in V3, with all the cool new features we have and APIs we have, there's always going to be areas where you might face this problem or a use case where whatever you're facing is something that we haven't seen or thought of, or maybe no one has seen or thought of. And how do you problem solve a situation like that? To be more specific, like what if you need to A/B test the config, for example? How would you go about delivering one config for test A or for test B, or you just want a dynamic title for your dashboard? So in this first segment, I'm just going to show you how you can actually do that and what happens when you go outside of the batteries included experience to see how far you can go using the standards we've chosen in the bottom. So just to be clear, in V2, we were relying heavily on Webpack and its APIs. In V3, we have chosen Vite to be the base bundler, but we have not chosen Vite as a standard. We've chosen ESM, which means we are interoperable. You can use new APIs that doesn't tie you to Vite or any bundler in specific, or even any bundler at all. That I will show that use case at the end of this talk. So just to get started, in order to call an API from a ESM file like this one, the first thing we need to do is to enable top-level async await. What that means is that we need to let Vite know that it's okay for us to do this, basically, because it doesn't allow that out of the box. And the first step to allow that is to hook into a little escape hook that we have for when you face a problem that are outside of what we cover. Give me just 1 second. Okay, there we go. There we go. And a little bit messy on the windows. Okay, so in this Sanity CLI file, and there will be more documentation of this, we allow you to hook into the Vite config directly. It might look scary, but the only thing that we are actually doing here is that we are changing the target. I'll highlight it in just a second. So the thing we're changing, and specifically, is this line here. We're just telling it to target newer browsers that support top-level await. I'm doing that in this demo because it's convenient, but when you go into production, you want to use a Vite plugin or a Rollup plugin that can support all the browsers you should support. So by turning this on, and conversely, we also need, since we're using TypeScript, we need to also change the target up here. There we go. Probably 2022. And when all that is done, probably don't need to restart. Think about it. Now we're ready to go. So I have a really, really useful API that we're going to use that is perfect for something you would do in production. It's called breadpuns. And you'll never guess what it does. Oh, hang on. Okay. You don't need any of this. That's a I copied that. Okay, so let's step back a little bit. All we've done here is that we have a try catch block that uses the fetch API that you probably used many times before. And since we use modern tooling, this should just work. We'll find out in a second. Have a plan B if it doesn't. Don't worry. Ah, there we go. Worked. So we're just changing, again, 2 files. We allow doing, but we can do anything now, basically. You can do lots of things you probably never should do, but you can do them. Useful things you could do here is calling APIs for reusable stuff, A/B tests, and all sorts of things. And this is a normal like JSON API. You can also do pretty cool things like, let's say, using an external service. This is an experimental one. And you want to have a new theme because you're bored by the theme that is already there. Let's go with pink. Is pretty cool. Yeah, just copy that and paste it in. And this is an ESM module. So you have a URL over here, and this generates an ESM module that we can just dump in here. And again, this has nothing to do with Vite and everything to do about V3 being bundling agnostic. So just to, yeah, it can be a lot at the same time, but just to reiterate, you can do anything you can do with a JSON API or any JavaScript you would want to inject into the config for some reason, for some business problem. You can now do in V3. You're not limited in any way by the choices we make for you in the base build. The base build is now just a convenience thing we give you to get you started. And unlike in V2, it doesn't limit you in any way at all. You can eject out of it. And you can take it further. Another use case is if you need a server-side API. For example, let's see, we only have 2 minutes left, so I have to speed forward to the solution. A very useful thing to do in your bookmarks is to fetch the title or favicons from the URL you're adding. But that's something you need an API for. You can't really do that just by looking at the. Just change the branch. Yes. Well, stash. I don't care. Come on, Git, please. Oh dear. Well, no worries. Just grab it. All right. Meetup. This is what happens when you do things live. Okay, let's go. Oh, that's the one, right? No, it's not. Okay. Everyone is seeing my private repos. Okay, here we go. All right. So, in the deployed version, we are able to add links that fetch the title. So if I add, let's say, Sanity.io, or do you need Web3? Sure. We can do a server-side call that will fetch the title for us and inject it. And this is just a next installation. And this is something you can install in the V3 Studio you're in. So just to show you that flow, to get from that point to this, to get from point A to B, you install Next and Next Sanity in your V3 project. And that gives you the ability to create an API file that you can call from your local. So if you look at the schema that is calling it, sorry, not the schema, the studio file that calls the API, it doesn't need to worry about headers. It doesn't need to worry about anything because it's all deployed together. I will post all the code used here. So those who want to dig into it can do that, or ask questions, of course, as we are moving a little fast here. But the takeaway is that whenever you're stuck or you need something that you can't do out of the box inside of the config, either it being something dynamic or something that requires a server, you have a path to, you have a migration path, a reject path you can take to apply that. And yeah, so that's a data fetching one. The other thing you can do in V3 that you couldn't do before, and this won't be such a code-heavy demo, is you can take over the way it renders. So in this demo here, I've implemented something called React Joyride. And what it does is it takes over the routing of the studio, and it knows the state. So it grabs my name from the authentication state. And just before I show you how that flow looks, here we go. The way you do this in V3 is by using the context API that React has. So there are two things in play here. One, we are grabbing the user from Sanity Studio and we're hoisting it up outside of it. Like we need to know if they're logged in or not to know if you need to show the tour. The other thing we're doing is we're overriding the way the studio renders. So we could be controlling its router. So it goes up and down, kind of. So number one, the way you grab something from deep inside of the studio in V3 is by creating a custom component like this one that can use some of the new hooks that we have. So use current user is from the new monorepo package, and to tie it all together, for this hook to work, this component needs to be inside of a studio provider, right there. And now to get that value out of here and all the way up, we just use a callback on change and set state. It's just from use state. And that's how we hoist it all the way up. There's all sorts of hooks that you can hook into to do all sorts of interesting things. This is just to open you up to the idea. And the other side of it, when you need to control the studio routing, is at the time being it's an unstable API, but it's to provide your own history object, as that gives you the ability to push to the state. So the rest that ties it all together is just calling push whenever the tour changes, and then we are using selectors to target the tour. So what it looks like in the end is this. So as you click next, oh, wow. There we go. I guess I zoomed in a little bit more than it used to. Right. So then it highlights the objects. If you don't suck at writing selectors like I am, it can take you all the way through different actions like highlighting forms. You can start typing in them. I love this product. No idea what it is, but I'm paid to give it 5 stars. You have to give an honest rating, and luckily this company, that is a very legit company, already knows we're going to give a 5, so we can't make the mistake of giving a different rating. And no one really reads this anyway. And that's a tour for the product. Oh, let's publish it. I would like to get rich in no time. So that's just a very quick example of how you can kind of like customize the studio from both ends. Get something in there that you want to do something cool, or override something in there. This is very experimental, so we would love to hear your feedback on the kind of things you would like to do to determine what kind of APIs that will be interesting for us to think about to make that possible for you. And that's the guided tour example. All of these will be posted, and yeah, again, you can ask any questions if there's anything unclear. I assume there will be, because I'm moving very fast through them. And then at the end, the coolest use case for me is the case of, let's say you have a lot of customers and you don't have any time to keep them up to date. This is a very common use case for agencies or people that deliver solutions to the public sector, where every primary school have exactly the same needs. It's just different name with different students and teachers. And it quickly adds up, 60 of these, and you can spend a whole week just updating dependencies and checking that they work and all that. So here's a pretend customer called Potatoes. They have a studio that is a blog. But on their legacy system, we can't run NPM. In fact, all they give us is we can upload a file like this. We can upload an HTML file. That's all we get. And with V3, since we're bundle agnostic, that's not a problem, because we can make use of our own ESM setup. So this studio here is using this mystery thing called standing up parts. And it's using the ID of this pretend customer to kind of block everyone else from using the studio. It's kind of like a sanity as a service kind of situation. Then it calls a function that renders the studio. Now, the interesting thing here is that the type module thing and what it implies compared to the way we've done this in the past in the web, but using globals or the good old jQuery days, we just added a CDN script tag and you could use the thing, but then the thing could do things that you didn't expect. But these things are not a problem here, because we can share state between these modules and customize exactly what they export and how it's used and the order they use. So the way you would go about to ship something like this and make it possible to just inject a script tag that gives someone an entire studio that they no longer need to maintain, and giving you one package to maintain, is by, I'll just drag that, oh, it's right behind. I prepared this one. Here we go. So this is the Super Studio that does the thing. And here's the build script to generate the file that you can just dump into your customer sites. So it's a ESBuild command. It tells it's the browser, tells it the bundle, minify, all that, and then where to output. And that's pretty much it. So all the logic for this is in this file here, which is where we are telling it that we are exporting a function called create studio. So if you want to export other things, we could do that, and then that would be available to the customers. But the interesting thing is just the convenience of all of it. So I have another customer, because my business is booming. They have a very controversial website. They're really, really against pineapple and pizza for some reason. And they don't have a very good web designer either. And now both of them want to have an Unsplash image selector. Now, in the good old days, I would have to go into each repo, right? But in this brave new world, it's pretty similar to how you would add it to any other V3 Studio. We would just add the thing. Oh, hang on. Unsplash. Unsplash plugin. There we go. Oh. I'm not used to being in this zoomed in state. There we go. Right. And the command is v3 something. Oh. Yes. Great. Oh, there it is. That's the one we need. So let's add that. And just since we are a sanity as a service all of a sudden, let's be responsible. And let's dig into the service we're shipping and add the thing, which is done like this. All right. Let's add the import. Oh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Need to add the plugin. All right, good to go. And now we have to run the command that outputs our service. Dunk. Cool. And then we deploy to production, of course. New plugin, yay. Cool. Oh, but it has something from production. Oh no. Probably deployed this earlier. Well, I have no choice but to nuke it. Okay, let's go. Wait. Oh no, well, then we'll just revert to commit. There you go. Yeah, let's roll back. No, there we go. Promote that one. Yes. It should be pretty fast. And while it does that, let's see how long it takes before both my customers suddenly have an Unsplash plugin. And yes, I did buy domain names just to make this hilarious for no reason. Okay, you done yet? Almost. Come on. Customers are waiting. We don't have all the time in the world. No Unsplash. Come on. I believe in you. Come on, next. 43 seconds. Ah, there we go. Should be out. And almost. Oh, okay. Spoke this in. Now it's out. And there it is. Unsplash deployed. What about potatoes? Did they get Unsplash? They got Unsplash. Everyone is happy. All right. So that is sanity part, software sanity as a service. If you do this, be responsible. Sanity will not condone any BMW-like behavior. And you know what I'm talking about. Like the front seat warm subscription thing. It's not good. And on that, I'm ready to take questions. Sorry if I moved a bit fast. I was very excited to show you all of this at once.
A lot of information. Great talk. Thank you for all of that. There are a couple questions, but I think we all just like need a little breather right now. That was a lot at the end.
Yeah.
My heart was racing. Everyone was like, "Are we doing live updates right now?"
Yeah, we did.
Oh, question that just came in. How many domains do you own?
Oh no.
It's okay.
Well, I'll give you the number. Hang on. Like asking how many workout clothes you have. It's not a very nice question. Yeah, 20.
Okay,
Half of them
not
are not
bad.
used.
That's pretty good though. All right. So we had a community question from Ethan. So async to update studio. Can we async to pull in data that isn't necessarily part of our Sanity data set?
Yes. Like anything you can use fetch for or a dynamic import for, you can use to modify your entire Sanity Studio export, like config before the studio loads it. So with that, as Spider-Man says, with a lot of power, with great power comes great responsibility. You have the power to break things as well, but you also have the power to do things that no one has dreamed about yet.
Right on.
No limits.
I think that teaching UI looked really really cool that you showed. I wondered if there's any way like you could display it just once, or like make sure it doesn't display all the time, but just when you actually want to do the teaching. How would you do that?
Display what? I missed that part.
Like the teaching, sort of taking someone through the studio and showing them like, oh, first you go and click that, and you go and fill in information. That seems like the kind of thing you don't want to see every time you go into the studio, right?
And can I add to that? Because I also had a question on that. Like, can you make it so they don't have to publish and it's like truly just a tutorial and they don't have to like fully publish something at the end?
Oh yeah. Like you it's more about, I think, with how deep you can integrate without hacking the studio, basically. And it's new ground, so a lot of this isn't tested since it's well tested in the studio itself, of course, but the kind of things we're doing here is very new. But in theory, yeah, you could adapt it in a way. You could gamify it so that the user is much more in control of how they progress. So you can do more of like an achievement system. So you could, for example, reward them for creating an article, but they decide when and how, instead of this very, very guided and forced approach, which was much more to show that you can take total control over the studio at the cost of a good user experience, I should add.
Yeah, I think a really good use case for this would be like bringing new employees on and having them create their own like employee profile page. But in the end, they publish it because it's like, oh, we want you as like listed as an employee. But that's like a really great use for it.
Yeah, and in general, these kind of guided tours is usually something you should also let the user specifically opt into instead of forcing it upon them, or at least make it easy for them to cancel out of it and opt into resuming it later if they feel like it. Because we don't want to interfere with the process of when they are exploring things and figuring things out, because that's so individual. You will likely just mess it up, right? But it is fascinating how much stuff you can do now, which previously was just not possible at all. Like you can really tailor make your studio to whole new levels, both in how you onboard people, but also in what it actually can do and where you can put the studio itself. It's like there's nowhere you can't put it anymore.
Yeah, it's launching later this year, but it is in developer preview, and I started playing around with it like a week or so ago, and it's cleaner. Like the code is cleaner. It makes sense. Like when I ran the command, the developer preview one, and I went in the schema index.js, I went into it and I'm like, oh, this is different. Like this is one line that I have to edit. And when and so before there was 8 lines that you would see initially. So things are being cleaned up and it's looking great. So I'm excited.
It's really nice. I always feel like I'm spoiled because I could just start working at Sanity and always use the cool new version. And also coming from the outside and we've been stuck with a lot of legacy systems, I also find it really, really encouraging that we're not just selecting cool new tools, because that can also be alarming. And we are forcing quite a high cost on our developers and users. But we are taking such a clear stand on selecting tech like ESM, making it really clear that we are no longer making these choices for you. We're just giving you the thing we think is best, but you can customize it and change it whichever way you want. There's no it's just a preference now instead of a decision made for you, and that's really encouraging for someone like me, that when I want to invest in a system, like say I didn't work at Sanity, it would be really encouraging for me to know that, okay, this looks cool, but I have this assurance that later on, if I disagree with how the studio does things out of the box, I'm not bound by it or restricted by it. I have the escape patches I need to solve the problem of my customers the best way I see fit. So it's like a very good guarantee to have.
And Ethan in the community just said, I'm glad that there is that starting point provided, because when you have too much of a blank slate, you kind of don't know where to go. But that initial starting, and then it's like you take it however far you want, or use what we have provided. So yeah, it's a lot of.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, we people don't know how much Sanity is investing in just making sure we get ESM right. And having worked on it, I wouldn't wish anyone to have to learn all that just to make sure you ship it correctly in production. We have to do this. We have to give people the starting point, because we already fatigued just dealing with the current ecosystem. But the stuff ahead of us with new runtimes like Bun, Dino, and Versal Edge, and these things, it's more important than ever that you don't screw up ESM. And it's, people that just want to build a website or a product should not have to deal with that at all. It's important that we that deliver these systems, we have to take that responsibility and give people a working solution as a baseline.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I'm very excited for V3, and there's going to be more talks and demos on it for the rest of this year. So definitely stick around, stay tuned, keep an eye out. But yeah.
Oh, and please share with us the cool stuff you're working on. I know it's easy to just work on really, really fun stuff and never talk about it, but please do share, because it's very fascinating for us. And we also want to hear like the kind of ideas you have. It's a whole new world.
Yeah. Right on. Well, thank you, Cody. If anyone wants to find Cody, you are in the Slack community, so you can reach out there. But yeah, other than that, thank you so much. This was a lot of info in a short amount of time. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Right on. Well, we will see you around. Thanks, Cody.
Bye.
Thanks.
All right. So
thank everyone, right, for joining this meetup. It's really cool to see people join in the community, and if you're watching this later, awesome that you're here. Next month we'll also have a meetup, right? It will be announced very soon. Keep an eye on out for the announcement. We'll email you if you're part of the meetup group, or follow us on Twitter, and we'll be sharing the links to that as well. And I think Gab will put it into Slack too. You can find it there.
Yeah, stuck those in there. We're also hiring. So if you ever are interested at what careers we have open, Hit is going to stick a link in the Meetup channel. But definitely check it out if it seems interesting to you, or if you know of someone who'd be a great fit, let us know. And then I don't know if you remember the demo we did at the very beginning of this meetup that Hida did on the search. But if you would like, you can upgrade your Sanity Studio using Sanity upgrade command and what was the command again, Hida?
Yeah, so you run Sanity upgrade, and then you get like the newest version, and you can press like Command K or Control K if you're in Windows, and that'll activate the global search.
Perfect. And then again, if you are just recently signing up for Sanity and you want to let our product team know what you thought about the onboarding experience, we have 30-minute blocks set out for, or set aside for any feedback that you all want to give. We will put the Calendly link in the chat as well. And yeah, if you'd like to schedule a time to give feedback or ask any questions, definitely find a time.
Yeah. And with that, I guess we'll see you all at our September meetup. Don't forget to RSVP once we've announced that.
Yeah,
So
and there will be more V3 stuff at that next meetup as well. So if you are interested, then definitely check it out. But yeah, thank you, everyone.
thanks.
See ya.